In an era of prophets and kings, of nascent civilizations and vast empires, there was a man whose story defied the bounds of imagination. Solomon, son of the prophet David, was unlike any other monarch. From a young age, he exhibited intelligence and wisdom that exceeded human understanding. Scholars spoke of him with admiration, elders observed him with respect, and the youth aspired to emulate him. But there was something deeper, something that set him apart even from the great sages of his time. Solomon was graced by divine favor. It all began with a dream, a vision that transported him to a realm of infinite possibilities. In that vision, Solomon asked his Lord for something uncommon among the hearts of kings. He did not seek wealth or longevity, but wisdom to judge with justice. His Lord, pleased with the purity of his request, granted him not only wisdom but also extraordinary gifts that no man before or after him would possess. From that moment on, his life became a testament to divine power and a demonstration of how a man can achieve greatness by serving something greater than himself. One morning, as the sun barely kissed the golden fields of the kingdom, two women arrived at the palace. Their desperate voices broke the calm of dawn, and their steps echoed through the marble halls as they were led to the throne room. The room, vast and adorned with intricate details, seemed to reflect the sunlight as if it were an earthly sky. There, at its center, Solomon awaited them, seated on his throne, whose elegance derived not from ostentation, but from the harmony of its design. The women presented themselves before him, each claiming to be the mother of a small child who cried in the arms of one of them. Their dispute was fierce, and both were determined to defend their cause to the end. The courtiers, accustomed to complex judgments, watched the scene with unease. This was no ordinary case. It was a test of Solomon's ability to unravel the truth. The prophet listened attentively, allowing both to present their arguments. His gaze showed neither impatience nor judgment, only deep concentration. Finally, he spoke with a calmness that filled the room. "Bring me a sword," he said. The command fell like thunder, leaving everyone silent. A guard stepped forward with a gleaming sword, and Solomon, with a firm voice, declared, "Divide the child in two, and give one half to each of them." The harshness of his words caused a murmur of horror to ripple through the room, but Solomon remained motionless. One of the women coldly nodded. "So be it. If I cannot have him, neither shall she." But the other woman, tears streaming down her face, fell to her knees. "No," she pleaded. "Let her keep him, but do not harm him. Let him live." Solomon raised a hand to stop the guard and turned his gaze to the woman who had pleaded for the child's life. "You are his mother," he said, with a smile that lit up the room. For only a true mother would sacrifice her happiness for the life of her child. Solomon's judgment not only resolved the dispute but left an indelible mark on the hearts of all present. It was more than an act of justice. It was a reminder that truth always prevails when sought with sincerity and wisdom. Over time, Solomon's gifts became more evident. He was not only a just judge, but also a man capable of communicating with the creatures of the world. One day, as he walked through a valley, he heard the murmur of ants. Upon seeing the approaching army, they hastened to take shelter, warning one another of the impending danger. Solomon, understanding their language, stopped and ordered his men not to proceed. "Do not crush these small creatures in your march," he said, his voice filled with compassion. His ability to understand animals was not a mere gift. It was a sign of his connection to creation, a manifestation of his responsibility as a servant of God to protect and guide all that was under his dominion. But it was not only visible creatures that obeyed him. The Jinn, beings of fire and wind, also submitted to his command. Some of them, endowed with incredible abilities, built palaces for Solomon that defied imagination, with glass ceilings and pillars that seemed to touch the sky. The Jinn, though powerful, submitted to his authority, recognizing in him not only a king but a prophet chosen by the Creator. Solomon used these gifts not to glorify his own name but to fulfill his mission. He knew that every ability was a divine loan and that he would one day have to account for them. His humility, despite his immense power, was one of his greatest virtues. When the Queen of Sheba received Solomon's invitation, it was not the message itself that intrigued her, but the tone of respect and wisdom that emanated from every word. She had heard rumors about the king who commanded the winds and spoke with animals, but what fascinated her most was his devotion to a single God. She decided to undertake the journey, bringing with her a retinue laden with riches, not to display her power, but to test the wisdom of the man everyone spoke of. Upon arriving in Solomon's kingdom, she was amazed to see his throne, which a Jinn had transported from her land in an instant. But what truly impressed her was the clarity and depth with which Solomon spoke of truth and justice. There was no arrogance in him, only a genuine desire to share the message of unity and devotion to the Creator. The Queen of Sheba, deeply moved, recognized Solomon's greatness not only as a ruler but as a servant of a higher power. In their exchange, there was no submission or conquest, only a dialogue that revealed the beauty of truth and divine wisdom. Solomon observed the Queen of Sheba with a serenity that radiated confidence and respect. It was a unique moment where two monarchs, both powerful and wise, met face to face, not to compete but to learn from one another. The Queen, known for her intelligence, had arrived with carefully crafted questions, aiming to test whether the king was as wise as the rumors claimed. Yet from the first moment, something about Solomon's presence made her doubt her approach. He was not a man seeking to prove superiority. His wisdom flowed from a purer source, a connection with the divine that she could not ignore. For days, the Queen of Sheba posed her questions, some philosophical, others practical, and even some that bordered on the impossible. If a river runs between two mountains and no one can cross it, how could someone obtain its water? Solomon, with a calm smile, replied, "Send a bird with an empty beak. It will return with enough water to quench the thirst." The answer, though simple, carried a deeper lesson. Even the greatest challenges can be overcome with ingenuity and patience. The queen was fascinated by Solomon's responses, but what surprised her most was not his intellectual capacity but his character. Despite his extraordinary gifts, he was humble, always giving credit to his Lord. "Everything you see here, all my wisdom and my kingdom, are but manifestations of the mercy of my Creator," he would say. And the queen, with each passing day, found herself closer to accepting the truth Solomon offered: the worship of a single God, the source of all wisdom and power. When the time came for her to depart, the Queen of Sheba was no longer the same. In her heart, she carried the seed of a new understanding, one that would forever change her worldview. "Your wisdom is a reflection of the power of your God," she said before leaving. And with those words, she acknowledged not only Solomon's greatness, but the truth of divine unity. As the years passed, Solomon's gifts continued to manifest in ways that amazed his people. There were days when the wind carried him across vast deserts, as if nature itself were at the service of his mission. At other times, the Jinn constructed structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics, like the magnificent palace with a crystal floor so clear that visitors mistook it for water. Each marvel was a lesson, a reminder that power and ability were not ends in themselves but tools to serve God and humanity. Yet Solomon was not exempt from trials. Despite his immense power, the prophet understood that everything he had was temporary, a loan from his Lord. There were moments when the Jinn, despite their obedience, attempted to use their strength to sow discord. Solomon, ever vigilant, relied on his wisdom to maintain balance, reminding them that his power did not come from them, but from his Creator. One of Solomon's greatest tests occurred when a particularly cunning Jinn tried to challenge his authority. This being, known for its rebelliousness, refused to carry out a direct order, seeking to measure the extent of Solomon's power. The prophet, unperturbed, recited a verse from the book revealed to him, a passage that invoked the supremacy of God over all things. Instantly, the Jinn fell to its knees, subdued by the force of the divine word. It was a reminder to all, including the Jinn themselves, that true authority did not reside in Solomon, but in the one God he served. Over time, Solomon became a figure not only of power but of inspiration. Stories of his justice spread beyond the borders of his kingdom, reaching distant lands where people regarded him as a living legend. But for Solomon, fame was never the goal. His purpose was clear: to guide his people toward the truth, to show them that greatness is not measured in wealth or material achievements, but in the ability to live according to divine principles. One evening, as he rested on his throne, gazing at the horizon, Solomon reflected on the fragility of human existence. Despite all he had achieved, he knew his time in this world was limited. He recalled the words of his father, the prophet David, who had always taught him to remain humble in the eyes of God. Solomon understood that his mission was not to accumulate earthly glory, but to prepare his people for a greater purpose, to recognize and serve the one true God. When the time of his departure came, it was as discreet as his life had been extraordinary. It is said that Solomon, aware that his time was near, leaned on his staff and prayed in silence. He remained there, firm and dignified, even in his final breath. The Jinn, who continued working on his projects, did not realize his passing until an insect, a mere worm, began to gnaw at the staff, causing his body to fall. It was a powerful reminder of the mortality of even the greatest, and a lesson for all. No man, no matter how wise or powerful, can escape the call of his Lord. The story of Solomon lives on, not merely as a tale of greatness, but as an example of how gifts, when used with justice and humility, can transform the world. His words, his actions, and his faith continue to inspire generations, reminding us that true power lies not in what we possess, but in how we use it to serve a higher purpose. What does the life of Solomon teach us? What would we do if we had his wisdom, his power, his gifts? Would we be just, humble, and grateful as he was? Or, in our humanity, would we forget where these gifts come from and the purpose for which they were given? The story of the prophet is not just a tale of the past, but a mirror in which we can all see ourselves, searching for answers to our own questions about justice, faith, and purpose.